Given that I have a Harry Potter YouTube channel, you might not be too surprised to hear that most of my recommended content on YouTube is, shocker, Harry Potter related. But every so often, I see something in the same realm, but just a little bit different pop up, which in this case was a video of Jordan Peterson analysing the series.
Look, Rowling is richer than the Queen. She came from nothing. She produced this empire. It's an absolute empire. Books that were 600 pages long that she could read to children in stadiums. A whole string of movies that dominated the entertainment landscape for like 6 years. It was a global cultural phenomenon. It's like, well, don't you think that's worth looking into?
Now, it's not often that mainstream figures discuss Harry Potter. It's 2025, and nearly 3 decades have passed since the first book came out. So naturally, I was curious, and I decided to see what he was talking about. But what exactly is the connection between Jordan Peterson and the wizarding world? And why does he seem to think it's so important? Is it possible that he's just bending the Harry Potter story to his philosophical will? Or are there elements to the story that perhaps many of us have never considered? Today I'm going to be breaking it down clip by clip and seeing if I can make some sense of it all. Don't worry, none of this is political, we're strictly staying on the topic of Harry Potter. Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Harry Potter Theory. So, as it turns out, Peterson isn't just talking about Harry Potter because he likes it. He believes the series reflects something much deeper, and that it exposes universal truths about human nature, morality, and transformation. His whole approach is rooted in Jungian psychology, a field that looks at recurring patterns, symbols, and archetypes in stories across time and culture. According to Peterson, Harry Potter isn't just a fantasy story, it's a modern myth, one that resonates so widely because it reflects something timeless about the human experience. And there are a number of things about the series that he's broken down in great detail, beginning with the fact that he sees Harry as a very good example of the classic hero archetype, a young man thrust into chaos and forced to confront darkness both around him and within him. And that last part is important, because he then emphasizes that Harry's connection to Voldemort isn't just a plot device, it's a metaphor, a symbol of the idea that in order to truly fight evil, you have to understand the potential for it inside yourself. Here's the clip.
You bloody well better have imagination for that kind of evil, because if you don't, then anyone who does wins. They beat you. And so, you know, again, in the Harry Potter stories, you see, he's touched by evil, right? He actually has a soul fragment that's embedded within him that's as black as anything can possibly be. That's why he could talk to snakes. But without that, he wouldn't be able to have any victory. And that's exactly right psychologically. Unless you can think the way that an evil person thinks, then you're defenseless against them, because they'll go places you can't imagine, and then they win.
In this clip, Peterson explains that if you can't imagine how a dangerous person thinks, you'll never be able to stop them, because they'll do things you can't even predict. He connects this to Harry by pointing out that because Harry has a piece of Voldemort's soul inside him, he is that much closer to understanding evil. That piece of darkness gives him insights into Voldemort's mind. It's why he can speak to snakes, feel Voldemort's emotions, and sometimes see what he sees. And according to Peterson, this isn't just a coincidence, it's symbolic. Harry is able to defeat evil because he understands it from the inside, but chooses not to become it. And this is echoed by him once again later in the video when he says, "A harmless man is not a good man. A good man is a very, very dangerous man who has that under voluntary control." In other words, true virtue doesn't come from being soft or naive, it comes from understanding the capacity for harm and choosing to restrain it. The next significant allegory for Harry Potter comes in the Chamber of Secrets, where, according to Peterson, this part of the story is far more than just a battle with a basilisk in an underground chamber.
Harry goes down, so in the second volume and in the second movie, Harry's at Hogwarts, so it's the school where you learn how to be magic, because that's what you really are. And there's something that threatens the school. Well, part of what threatens the school? Evil, right? Voldemort, that's one thing. But at the same time, it's also the snake that lurks underneath. It's the basilisk that threatens the school. And so the basilisk is the dragon. And when the basilisk looks at you, then you're paralyzed because you're a prey animal. And if a predator captures you in its gaze, you freeze. And the reason you freeze is because your body reacts to the predator as something that should turn you to stone. So what do you do about the basilisk? Well, one thing you do is you run and hide. But the other thing you do is go confront it in its lair, and that's what Harry Potter does. Now, and what's interesting about him is he's also touched by evil, right? And that means that he's an embodiment of what Jung would regard as someone who's integrated the shadow. And without that capacity, he isn't able to communicate, say, with snakes. And that's not so good, because since there are snakes, it's not such a bad idea to know how to communicate with them. And he goes down into the underground, right, into the chaotic domain that's underneath the school in order to find the snake in its lair. Now, if I remember correctly, you tell me if I'm wrong. Doesn't he go down through a bathroom? Through a toilet? Right. Well, so that's an indication of the Jungian dictum that what you need most is to be found where you least want to look. You want to go down to the place where the transformations occur. So what happens in Harry Potter? Well, this basilisk is wandering around, paralyzing everyone who isn't able to communicate with snakes. And he doesn't fight the basilisk precisely. He goes down into its lairs, the underground world. And that what down there is that snake has got Ginevra, right? His girlfriend. That's her name, right? It's a variant of Virginia. That's a variant of virgin. And the snake always has a virgin. That's one of its characteristics, right? Like gold. He goes down there to rescue her. What happens to him? He gets bit, and he's going to die. So what happens? The phoenix comes along and cries tears into his wounds and cures him. And that's... So the idea is that what saves you in the encounter with the snake is your capacity to let things go and die and come back to life, right?
In his analysis, Harry's battle with the basilisk isn't just heroic, it's mythological. It reflects the timeless story of the hero who journeys into chaos, faces evil, and emerges changed. And like all great allegories, it begins in the last place you'd expect, a toilet. Harry, unlike others, can face the basilisk because he is touched by evil, carrying a part of Voldemort within him. He also points out that Harry enters the basilisk's lair through a bathroom, a symbolic image meaning that transformation is often found in the places we least want to look, the dirty, unwanted, or feared parts of ourselves. Once in the chamber, Harry doesn't just slay the monster, he's poisoned and begins to die. But he's saved by Fawkes the Phoenix, who heals him with tears. Peterson sees this as a symbol of rebirth. To grow, we must first confront what might destroy us, even die in some sense, and then come back transformed. And for this reason, and many others, Peterson suggests that Harry Potter became so culturally powerful because it draws from deep, universal symbols shared across religious and mythic traditions. The next major symbol Peterson explores in Harry Potter is the golden snitch, which, according to him, is more than just an upgrade from a golden snidget.
I commented on this, the snitch in Harry Potter, because I found that it's a very old symbol. That's a really old symbol. It shocked me to death that she used it. I couldn't believe she used it because it's really obscure, this symbol. And so I talk about it in the book. And she, that's what she dismissed as the ravings of a stoned undergraduate. But then I thought, well, look, Rowling is richer than the Queen. She came from nothing. She produced this empire. It's an absolute empire. Books that were 600 pages long that she could read to children in stadiums. A whole string of movies that dominated the entertainment landscape for like 6 years. It was a global cultural phenomenon. It's like, well, don't you think that's worth looking into? That's what makes you a stoned undergraduate? Or are you so clueless that you can't see that when something like that happens, there's a mystery? It's why in the world would the story of a magical orphan become a multi-billion-dollar, decades-long global cultural phenomenon?
So I'm going to read this section, and you're talking about the snitch as the alchemical symbol of the round chaos. And you say this: the seeker is the person who is playing the game that everyone else is playing, and who is a disciplined expert at that game, but who is also playing an additional higher order game, the pursuit of what is of primary significance. The snitch, like the round chaos, can therefore be considered the container of that primary significance. So for those of us who don't know the Harry Potter movie, there's a game called Quidditch, and it's basically like lacrosse, and you try to get the ball in the goal, but there's a seeker who actually is seeking this magical golden orb, which has alchemical kind of roots in the round chaos. And if they seek that, the game is over, and it's been given that additional, as you say, primary significance. And this concept was really, really interesting to me to have it unpacked, because I watched some Harry Potter, and I saw it, and I saw the game. That, of course, didn't occur to me. It was just like, oh, this is the rules to this game. But then I realized in my own life, there's the game that I'm playing. Oh, I'm running on it and I'm doing these things. But what is my snitch? What is my round chaos? What is that ultimate higher order potential that I'm seeking? And so my question was, have you thought about for you? Because we can obviously see the game being played as far as the normal Quidditch game. But for you personally, what is your snitch? What is your round chaos that you're seeking, the game within the game that you're playing at large?
Well, what's always attracted my attention, predominantly. So let me unpack some things here. Is
sure.
that some of the interpretation of that symbol, a lot of it came from my reading of Jung, because he's the only person that I've ever read who seems to know about such things, even knows that they exist. Jung believed that your interest, which is a relatively involuntary phenomenon, right? You get interested in things, but you can't make yourself interested in something. The interest grabs you and grasps your attention. And so Jung thought of that as a deeply seated biological mechanism, which it obviously is. It's a neurological mechanism of some sort that governs. It has the capacity to possess your voluntary attention, just like hunger does. When you get hungry, you're typing away, writing a book or something, and you get hungry, hunger starts to grab your attention. Well, look, you're interested in some things, and you're not interested in others. Well, why? Well, some of that has to do with your choice, but not that much. A lot of it has to do with who you are in the deepest sense. And Jung believed that you were likely to become interested in things that furthered your development furthered your psychological development, made you more and more competent. So for example, you might get interested, you might really come to admire someone, and so what they do grabs your interest. And that happens with children quite a lot, and they get interested in kids who are slightly ahead of them in the developmental curve, and then they mimic them. And so the interest is something that grabs you to move you forward on the developmental curve. And so it's the manifestation of your potential higher self in the present.
As we know, in Quidditch, the Seeker's job is to chase the Snitch, a tiny winged golden orb that ends the game and scores the team 150 points. On the surface, it's just part of the rules, but Peterson sees it as an ancient alchemical symbol, something which he refers to as the round chaos. He also explains that this concept is so obscure that he was shocked Rowling even used it. To Peterson, the Snitch represents primary significance, something beyond the normal game everyone else is playing. The Seeker is still playing that game, yes, but they're also chasing something greater. It's a symbol of the higher path, your potential, your future self, your personal transformation. Peterson argues that this pull toward the Snitch is like interest, that feeling when something grabs your attention and won't let go. You can't choose it, it chooses you, and it usually points towards something meaningful. So when Harry chases the Snitch, it's more than just sport. It's a metaphor for the deeper journey. The idea that while you go through life playing one game, there's often a bigger game happening underneath. The Snitch is the thing that calls you forward, the part of you that says, this is who you could become. While there's a lot of Peterson Harry Potter content floating around on YouTube, these three examples are probably the clearest illustrations of why he believes the series matters so much. Each one highlights a powerful allegory: death and rebirth, confronting inner evil, and chasing our highest potential. And if we consider all of these together, it shows us that Harry Potter taps into something timeless and deeply human. Or does it? In making these real-world comparisons with Harry Potter, Peterson has certainly faced his fair share of ridicule, and this is largely due to the fact that many simply dismiss the story as a children's book lacking any real substance. To this, he fairly points out that the series had young children reading 600-page books, lining up outside of bookstores, and completely immersed in a fictional world. It also made Rowling richer than the Queen, he says. And his point is this: that kind of cultural impact doesn't happen by accident. Stories only resonate on such a massive scale like this when they reflect something universal, something embedded in our psychology. And in his view, Rowling didn't just write a best-selling fantasy, she tapped into mythic structures that have guided human beings for centuries. But is all of this just overanalysis? Is it possible that Peterson is simply twisting Harry Potter to fit his own philosophical framework? Well, some seem to think so. And one article published in the Sunday Times, which examined his book Beyond Order, suggests that his interpretation says more about him than it does about the actual story. They make the argument that while Peterson treats Harry Potter as a modern myth, his analysis often feels forced and self-indulgent, bending Rowling's work to fit his own philosophical outlook. Harry Potter, the Bible, Egyptian myths, and Sumerian legends are polished into flattering mirrors for the Jordan Peterson view of the meaning of life. In other words, the critique is that Peterson isn't just analysing the story, he's using it to validate himself. And this point hits hardest during one of Peterson's more extreme interpretations, where he writes, Harry gains access to the underworld through the sewer, acting out the ancient alchemical dictum, in sterculinus invenitur, in filth it will be found. Ginny lies unconscious. She is the maiden, or the anima, the soul, forever incarcerated by the dragon. And the author of the article, James Marriott, seems to think that this is just overreach dressed as insight, including, Peterson doesn't think Rowling is a genius, he thinks Jordan Peterson is a genius. And that's one of the broader points that he makes, that Peterson inflates ordinary moments into grand myth, refusing to accept that some things, even things that happen every day, might just be trivial. To insist on endless struggle and endless heroism and endless meaning is to cut yourself off from a great deal of what is best in people and in the world. Now the question is, what do you all think? While I'm certainly happy that Peterson derives such great importance from the story that I've loved for so many years, and while I certainly echo the sentiment that Harry Potter has a lot more to it than meets the eye, I do sort of see both sides of this. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in the middle. If you enjoy the content, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, remember, It does not do to dwell on dreams and to forget to live